throwing a cake in the air. We actually had a Big Ten conference call earlier today. They've used to be early morning, but now because we got some teams out west, we got to be compatible with our scheduling of conference calls. So we had a 11:15 conference call here today. So just got a phone call with Adam. I know who we're playing in 25-26. You guys want to know that?
Yes.
I'm just lying. I don't know, but coming soon, maybe. All right. So, but I would just tell you I thought we had a good week of practice. Thought our guys handled the moment. Obviously, some things we had to get correct and juice, but enter Big Ten play this week to be able to go on the road, play the Big Ten West defending champ, and a rematch game and a trophy game. Got a lot of things to play for. I'm excited for our guys. So that'll open up. From an injury standpoint, Reggie practiced yesterday. Taz didn't have any issues all week. His was just kind of he had a pretty significant cold last week, got dehydrated at halftime, so he didn't have any issues this week. Who else was there? T. Strain practiced yesterday and today. Trying to think if there's anybody else. That's about it. Everybody else was good to go and should be full strength, other than the guys that were out last week, that had been out previously. So other than that, some guys with some bumps and bruises, but should be pretty good. So open up for questions.
Coach, you said the other day about playing against teams in the West. You like the idea of starting the second half of the Big Ten against West teams? Does that matter to you either way?
I think if you're asking about what we're in right now versus where we're going in the future, I think divisional play is good when you play proximate opponents. Like I've been on a couple of these now, right? I went to the University of Iowa and we had the Floyd of Rosedale, right? When you battled for a pig, right? A border war. I went to Wisconsin and you battled Minnesota on it with an axe game, right? And come to Illinois and I border obviously within the same state, have a trophy game with Northwestern. So I've seen it kind of on multiple different levels. When we had the Wisconsin-Iowa trophy that kind of manifested during my coaching career, I didn't ever have it when we were a player. So I kind of saw something get added into the mix, which I think is awesome with the Heartland Trophy. So I thought there's a lot of different things that are good from those kind of environments. A lot of people don't know it, but Illinois has a trophy game with Ohio State, right? But we just don't play each other on a continual basis. To be quite honest, I knew that only when I got here. I didn't know that existed before I came here. I didn't know Illinois, Ohio State had one. I knew they had one with Northwestern, and obviously I knew they had one with Purdue, but I wasn't aware of the Ohio State one just because it's not commonly played, right? So I think any coach would probably tell you that divisional play is fun, but I am also very excited to get into 24 and play some teams that have never been on our schedule. If you look at the powers that be right now, you look at the top 25 with the teams that'll be coming into our league versus the ones that are in here now. It's going to be arguably a competitive conference from top to bottom that's uncomparable to anybody else.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Brett, I'm just wondering, do you have any update on Desmond Schuster?
Yeah, Jeremy. So to be honest, he'll have what is today? Thursday? He has a test Friday, and if that goes well, then he'll be able to get into activities that would get him close to being on the field. He's over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's been going positive. He hasn't been cleared for full participation, but he has been able to start doing things with our strength staff, a little bit with coaches to do some individual stuff that's very football specific, but he hasn't been engaged in a practice at this point. And I don't foresee him, even if everything goes well on Friday and the results come back, I don't think it's like one that you could just work him into. I would say maybe something coming on the bye week or earlier than that would be strictly just a pure benefit.
And just to follow up, Bart talked about maybe some competition in practice on the offensive line. Have you seen that? Have you seen guys respond to that?
Seen it, heard it, watched it. I mean, it's good. I think competition brings the best out of people. So, I think the results of what we see on Saturday are often based off of what we see Tuesday through Friday, right? So, it also just brings awareness. I think everybody, not just at the O-line, but all positions, right? There's guys that have come on and done good things, and whether it be, in the running back room, the tight end room, Griffin Moore, right? Like makes a play. You would like to get him involved. Guys are competing and they want reps, right? And sometimes people just focus on who's the starter, but I think it's more about who gets the opportunities and who gets the reps to be out there.
Thanks.
You're muted, Scott.
Sorry about that. Brett, to as much as you can, it looked like there were more formations with multiple tight ends last week. How effective can that be for you and going forward?
Scott, I think truly, if you follow my coaching career, regardless if it's in the passing game or running game, I thought tight ends bring unique matchups, right? So sometimes people look at it just strictly on who's the faster guy, but a lot of times matchups can be as who can perform in a one-on-one matchup, right? So a tight end, you might get him in a mismatch where you got a very athletic tight end going against a safety or a linebacker that you think he has a better skill set. Well, the same thing can be said, right? You can get a matchup with a tight end that maybe he's getting covered by a corner, right, in a zone scheme or a man scheme that he has a power advantage on, right, in the run game or the throw game. So I think the tight ends, I remember talking to Ted Thompson early on in my coaching career. Green Bay had just won a Super Bowl, and they had more players that were from 6'2" to 6'5", from 220 to 260 than anybody else in the NFL, right? And it was kind of like their little niche. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, especially in Big Ten play with some guys that can do that. And then I really admire when we're going against other teams. For instance, this week they got a couple tight ends that are very unique. I think Kansas, we saw that as well, like some guys that were mismatch issues. And then Penn State last week had a couple guys that 44 was a very versatile. They had two 44s, one on offense, one on defense. But both the guy on offense, he was a good run game matchup and a good pass game matchup for them and their offense.
Brett, obviously, Purdue's quarterback can get out and move a little bit with his legs and being a factor that way. What can you guys take from especially those first two games that could carry over, learning lessons or anything along those lines?
Well, Hudson is like you mentioned, a very good athlete. He creates, I think the thing that, a quarterback has three basic concepts he's got to be able to do. He's got to be able to throw the ball and be accurate with what he's doing. He's got to be able to create and make plays that are called. But the biggest advantage a quarterback can do is create plays that aren't there, right? And because the way he can run and maybe some read option games in certain areas of the field, he brings a dynamic that is allows you to offensively as a play caller do things, and on the flip side, defensively, you always have to account for him. So, yeah, without a doubt, I think the first two guys, in particular, Toledo, that quarterback presented a whole new set of issues on his athletic ability and the speed. Like I was talking, with their coach afterwards, and he was clocked at over 22 miles per hour in GPS, which is literally like spoon speed for us, right? Like that shows where he was at a year ago. So every quarterback presents new challenges. I think Hudson is a tremendous competitor. You can see he runs the offense. I know Graham calls the offense through the quarterback's point of view. It's what he's done his entire career, and that's obviously what we'll see on Saturday.
Yes, Brett, just as a follow-up to the question about tight ends, how important is it for your offense to be able to cycle maybe through 11, 12, 13, 10, 20, one personnel, just whatever it might be, just to have some dynamism there?
Yeah, I think, to that point, even if you just take take our top three tight ends, take Tip Ryman, Griffin Moore, and Henry Boyer. All three of those guys are a little bit different, like Tip's probably right in the middle, right? Like we use him in line, we use him out in the flex position. Henry Boyer, we use him really in line and kind of in a traditional C area type position, and we use Griffin in a little bit more flex wide receiver routes and whatnot. But those three guys combined together on the field at one time are a little bit different than having three wide receivers in the same alignment. So I like the group, the diversity, and then Tanner Arkin has really been a very valuable player for us, just because he does a lot of things for us within the framework of backing those guys up, but also on special teams, he's a major player. So those tight end positions are a big booster to your roster, not just offensively, but also on special teams. Ben Schultz is another guy, our fifth tight end, who literally is engaged in three of our four special teams phases.
I guess just with the running backs, having maybe all four really contribute last week. How do you maybe build off of that moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was sometime last week I had written down 12-8-4-4, and I said this last time on my radio show, where I thought going into that game, if Reggie had 12 carries, if Josh had 8, and the two young bucks had 4 each, midway through the third, fourth quarter, like I thought that'd be kind of a good blueprint of what we wanted to establish. And I think we finished the game with 12 for Reggie. He left early with the injury. I think Josh had 13, if I'm not mistaken, 13 or 14, and the young bucks had 3 each. So, like, I think to have a mix of those guys, whether it be, I've always had 2 guys that have been in forecast, and I've done sometimes with 3, and I had a Rose Bowl year where we ran through 4 guys. So I think to have those guys be fresh, and it's probably realistic as we witnessed last year. Obviously, Chase was there for almost every game, but Reggie and Josh had sporadics where they weren't there, and that affected your game plan just because of the volume that you want to put on the running backs. But if they're not there, it can't happen. So it's a little bit of work in progress, but I like those 4 guys for sure.
Robert, I think we're on you next.
I can't hear you, Robert.
Yeah, your audio is not coming through, Robert.
I can barely hear you. You just got to turn it up.
I'll step in real quick if I could, Brett. Just for
Step in and call Brett if you want to have the volume come through. Robert, go ahead.
You said, just for clarity, you said Reggie Love practiced yesterday. Was he also able to go today, or?
Reggie went yesterday, went about half the practice. We decided to keep him out today. He was out there, but we didn't rep him. And then I think Friday, if he feels as good as we thought he'd feel, we'll go with that. Obviously, if he doesn't, we got Josh and those other 2 guys. But, Reggie, I think, is feeling pretty good where he's at.
All right, thank you.
I think when you got a player that has that much volume of experience, you also got to let him know that we want him to be 100% for Saturday. So we routinely did this with players in my career, but especially running backs. They got to feel good about where they're at on game day. Go ahead, Matt.
Brett, is there a conversation that you have to have in this first month with freshmen? I mean, we talked to Canary, we talked to Caden about, coming to coach and going, hey, am I doing something wrong? And you have to remind them, no, you're on the plan we want for you. And that gives them confidence.
I don't think it's freshmen. I think it's just players that are in the travel. Are you kind of saying about not guys that are traveling but not getting used?
Yeah, just, or freshmen who have always been the guy on their team, and now they're kind of just trying to find a role, and they go, hey, I'm not playing as much as I think, but am I doing something wrong? It's not a selfish thing, or how do I get better? And you're like, hey, you're doing fine. We have a plan for you. This is part of the plan.
I'm sorry. When you said Aiden and I thought you meant Kanena. You're talking about Aiden and Caden Fagan. Yeah. No. Aiden was really on the verge of playing for us a year ago, and unfortunately in the last scrimmage he tore his pec. So that set him back, and then we were about ready to get him in, and the later said, and just never had the opportunity. I think Caden Fagan, really, since the time he got here in January, we never thought he'd be a guy that we would redshirt. But if you guys remember, Josh McCray, who had a pretty special freshman year, he didn't even dress for the home opener just because he just wasn't ready. Like Gabe Ackus he was a freshman All-American, the first ever in our school here, right? A true freshman All-American on defense. He didn't play a lot in that opener, right? Because I think when you have a player that's beginning his career, if you rush it and he has a setback, you can literally scar him for months and possibly even years to come, right? So I want to be very confident about the position we're putting him in. I really felt good on Saturday. Obviously, a lot's been said about what I said to Aiden, but the same thing could be said for Caden Fagan. I grabbed him the week before and said, really looking forward to seeing you run, because I think he's a special player, and the more he touches the ball, the more opportunity and the more confidence he'll get.
Well, I can try again. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. My question is about yards and points. I'm just concerned. I'm curious if you're concerned. 510 yards on Saturday, 23 points. Would have been 30 if Fagan would have scored, but that's still short of the goal. I looked up the stat. You're like 112th nationally in points at the end of your yards. Is that a concern in the staff room? We've been talking about that issue.
Yeah, I think all stats are important. I'm not one of these coaches that be like, hey, like that's not like they're all important. I would say for us, the part that drives us more than anything, our early down success, red area success. A year ago at getting out of the season, we had a lot of concerns about our red area offense, and that's been one of the high points of our season at this point. So we've kind of corrected that element. There's been a lot said about what to do at the end of the game. I'm never going to be one that tries to put points artificially at the end. But on the flip side of that, a lot of times statistically in my career, it doesn't look as pretty as people want it to be, right? And you just hope it ends up in wins. I do think that, you have 500 yards offense, you're going to certainly hope that you're on the board for more than 23. But, we had a, I addressed this with our offense, and now for me as a not a play caller, but as a head coach, we've had 3 games where we've started off very, very well offensively and ended up with 0 points, right? And that to me, like, everybody wants to talk about analytics, and we subscribe to that, and everybody wants to follow the book. But to me, at the beginning of the game, to march the field, 50, 60, 70 yards and come away with 0 points, that has a lingering effect. I really believe we fell down 10-0 because I made the decision to go for it and we didn't convert at the beginning of that FAU game. And now I know we stopped them on defense and switched the field, but there's an effect there that I think if you have points after going all the way down the field, that has a huge carryover for the rest of the game. So I think that's something I'm constantly evolving and working through within our own program. So, that's the part that I think we got away. And then, we're a different team than we were a year ago. Obviously, a lot has been said, a lot of and I know our defenses continue to make strides. They did a hell of a job on Saturday, but I could call and manage the game a lot different probably during the last, 3 quarters of the season last year, knowing what we had on defense and the capabilities they had. And also I'm getting a better feel for our kicking game right now as well.
All good, everybody?
I got one more.
Oh boy, Bob. About the punter.
I got one more. As long as it's not a punter, personal foul related, I'm good.
Wow. Well, okay. Yeah, it's not personal, but it's food related. Traditionally, Illinois goes to Purdue, they stop the beef house. Has that been a thing for you guys, or no, you're not doing that?
We will make a stop at Beef House. I don't want to give out any locational evidence,
No.
but yes.
We know
I got
it is,
one.
but
I got one. Scott Ritchie, is that a Jayhawk towel behind you? Like,
No, that's Cardinals.
okay, thank you. I was like, I got you in a Jayhawk snuggie was just not a visual I needed as we.
No, I'm not trolling you on Zoom today.
Is that it, Bob? Was that it? If we're starting the Beef
I
House?
just wanted to know did you do it 2 years ago or not?
We did, and then one of the things I've done as a head coach is I've tried to listen to those that have been here in the past, right? And
Right.
we're on our last trial basis, right? I'm going to tell you that the impinging results of Saturday will decide a canon and also the longevity of us at the Beef Bowl, our beef house. I do know that.
I got you. When you go, you're not sure. Got you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You guys have a good one.
That's all we got, Coach. Thanks.